This is The Roman Show.
Matt Riddle Roman of The Roman Show, and on the line we have a gentleman that you're very familiar with if you are a big fan of the UFC and watching fighters inside the octagon. I'm talking about Matt Riddle, but now he has transitioned from the octagon to the professional wrestling ring. Welcome to The Roman Show, man. How are you, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So let us know here. I mean, we've been a big fan of yours, following your days in the UFC and the mixed martial arts. And here we are. We're talking pro wrestling. You're already a champion at a promotion. You've signed up with Evolve. Evolve, a very reputable independent pro wrestling company. And then you're going to be this weekend at Superstar of Wrestling Live at West Palm Beach. In West Palm Beach at the Armory at 3193 Club Road. SuperstarsofWrestlingLive.com is the website with guys like Justin Gabriel and guys who have been in the sport for a long time, Matt Hardy. So how do you get involved in wrestling?
You know, I was a huge fan growing up, and I wrestled in high school and college, and I always wanted to be a professional wrestler, but I kind of just fell into MMA, and it just, seemed like a better fit at the time. Right out of college, I tried out for the Ultimate Fighter and got on and had a 5-year career in the UFC. So really didn't have time to pursue pro wrestling because I was so busy fighting in the UFC. And, once I was done with that and got an opportunity to do something I really wanted to do, I was like, I gotta, take it by the horns and try this pro wrestling stuff and see if I got what it takes. And everything has been going great. I've had really great success so far.
So you last fought last year in MMA. How long have you been training in pro wrestling? Were you trying this prior to going into it 100%? I mean, what's the situation with the training? When did you start?
I started formally training last November, but when people ask me, it's like, because if you ever seen me wrestle, I'm not too bad. I know what I'm doing, and I've been watching professional wrestling my entire life, and maybe I've only had about 40 matches in front of crowds in a ring, but I've probably had a couple thousand in a backyard, So I've been doing this stuff for a while, just not at the level I'm doing it at now.
So you did do backyard wrestling then? I mean, that was a thing back in the day.
That was the thing, I had the cookie sheets, the trampoline, the ladders, and I went pretty hard with my buddies, and it was a blast. And then, but like I said, the high school wrestling and college wrestling really took up a lot of my time, and I dedicated a lot of time in that so I could go to school, and then from that it translated right into MMA, because at the time when I was in college, MMA was just starting to get steam. They just did the first Ultimate Fighter, and the UFC was starting to get really mainstream. So like I said, I really just fell into the UFC, and I mean, no regrets. It was awesome, but now I really get to do something I really want to do, and that's wrestle. So I've been having a blast.
So what character did you have in the backyard days, and is that character now your character now as you take on this thing, pretty much as your career?
I don't think I really had a character back then. I was just myself. I guess I am kind of a character. And even when I fought in the UFC, I was myself because I'm a character. And even when I wrestle now, I don't do a gimmick. I'm basically myself, and people really responded well to it,
Now, do you ever, though, want to return? Do you still train MMA? But would you...
I do still train mixed martial arts. I really, at this point, I really have no intention of returning to mixed martial arts unless I was going to be fighting back in the UFC, and it's nothing against anybody else, but there's only one real spot you can make a decent living in mixed martial arts, and that's in the UFC. So if you're not fighting for them, you're really not going to be, you're not going to get what you're worth.
Now, your body, training MMA and then pro wrestling, and there's always this debate. I think it was Dana White. He made a comment on Twitter, and all the professional wrestlers try to jump on him about being fake and so forth. And then all the wrestlers started saying how bad it takes a toll on your body. Your body right now, compared to the training that you did in MMA, how is it? Because I'd like to hear from you, a person who was in MMA and now is dedicating himself 100% to wrestling, about the injuries, about the pain that you feel when you roll around, when you have to take all these bumps inside the ring, compared to when you train 3 times a day with MMA, when you do jiu-jitsu or wrestling or anything else.
Yeah, MMA and pro wrestling, they're similar, but they're different in a lot of ways. The thing about mixed martial arts is, like, you never know when that next hit's coming. While professional wrestling, you have a good idea of when that body slam's coming and when to brace yourself and when you're going to get hit, and, you can kind of prepare yourself. Well, like, in professional wrestling, when you work, you're working with somebody. In MMA, you're working against somebody. But saying that, though, professional wrestling, you definitely do take bumps, and, you go over the ropes, and you do more dangerous stuff in that sense. But, you know what? Like, for me, MMA was a little harder on my body because I was cutting so much weight. Like, right now I'm walking around at, like, 220, 225, and I'm in really good shape. And when I fought in the UFC, I fought at 170 pounds. So I would have to cut a drastic amount. I usually had to cut like 20 to 30 pounds when I would fight. And it was really hard on my body. And that's usually when injuries would occur, or I'd get hurt, or I'd just feel awful. Because, when you're that dehydrated and you're not allowed to, you can't really eat too much or do anything, your body can't really recover the way it should. Well, pro wrestling, like I said, you're definitely taking more impact, more bumps, but you're allowed to recover, you're allowed to eat, you're allowed to drink, you're allowed to hydrate. They're not checking you on a scale right before you perform and rate it, So it's a little different, but I would have to say the wear and tear in pro wrestling, you just got to work smart, and MMA is the same thing. You just have to work smart. When you train, you can't spar a million miles per hour, and you got to have good sparring partners and good practice partners even when you do jiu-jitsu, If you have somebody that's going to crank holds on you or hurt you, your career's not going to last long. But if you have people that work with you, just like in wrestling, if you have people that work with you well, you're really not going to get hurt too often.
So what has been your biggest challenge with this transition, you would say?
The biggest challenge for me has been, instead of working against people, working with people. I'm usually used to going out into a ring or a cage, and there's no game plan. There's a game plan, like I'm going to try to beat somebody up. But now the game plan's changed in the sense that now, I'm not only trying to make myself look good, I want them to look really good to get us both, in that spotlight. So that's the biggest thing, is making each other look really good, and that's about it. Like I said, I did a lot of backyard wrestling, and I've been training for a year, and even when I fought in the UFC, I only trained about 6 months before I got signed to the UFC.
Wow.
So, and then this is actually, I would have to say it's harder for me to get into the WWE than it was the UFC, because it's already been like a year. In the UFC, it only took me like 6 months, 8 months. So.
Yeah, and question, because there's a lot of rumors going on. You signed with Evolve, but been rumors that NXT, Triple H, they've have an eye on you, or some of the folks from the WWE have had an eye on you. Is this true? Have you had some sort of communication with folks from the WWE?
Yeah, I have, and I did a tryout with the WWE this past June. The tryout went extremely well. It went as well as it could. And the WWE was nice enough to set me up with Evolve and let me wrestle for them. And it's a process, but from what I see and what I feel, everything is going according to plan. On the right track. It's not as fast as a transition as I'm used to, like getting right into the UFC. But I think I'm on the right path, and I hope You know, I can never, you know, there's never a guarantee until there's a contract in your hand or something like that. But I'm pretty confident that I will be in the WWE sooner than later.
Now let's talk about the superstars of wrestling live that you're going to be in with Matt Hardy. Who do you have, and who are you scheduled to wrestle, and what can people expect from you when they see you for the first time down here in Florida, since it's your first time you're wrestling here? What can they expect from you?
You know, they're gonna. I'm wrestling Wes Brisco. I'm really excited. I've met Wes a couple times, and I'm familiar with his father, Gerald. I've met Gerald a bunch of times as well and talked to him a bunch. And I'm just really excited to perform in front of a different crowd. I've been performing in front of crowds in Jersey and for like the last probably 8-9 months. So it'll be nice to get a change of scenery. And I'm just really excited to get in the ring with somebody with the experience Wes has, because, you know, it's just, I haven't wrestled him. So I know it's going to be different. But what you can expect from me is a very snug style of wrestling. Everything's going to look very legit. It's almost going to look like a real fight. If it, you know, that's my goal. That's why I got into professional wrestling. I like to make it look as real as possible, and like somebody's going to get severely injured, but nobody does.
I remember speaking to Wes, and I think he has trained some of MMA. I believe he did tell me so he's a big fan of MMA. I could be wrong, but I think I remember speaking to him about that. And knowing the experience you have in MMA, would you use that strong style of wrestling, knowing that you've taken punches, you're a pro at that. But if you have someone like would you do that strong style like the Japanese do?
Of course, I would love to. And, you know, I'll talk to Wes before the match. If he's comfortable, I know I'm comfortable, and maybe we get a little stiff out there. But we know the safe spots. We know where we can take damage and how much damage we can take. So, honestly, like I said, I'm just excited to get in the ring with somebody with his experience. He's wrestled everywhere. He's been everywhere. You know, he stays busy. And I think it's going to be a great match, you know. I don't know where we are on the card, so, they usually restrict you from doing certain stuff. But hopefully I get to, you know, show him everything I got, and he can show me everything he's got. So, really, the barn burner.
Well, Matt, I want to thank you so much for your time, man, and we look forward to catching you in action this weekend here in West Palm Beach at the Superstars Live Wrestling when Matt Riddle makes his debut in Florida against Wes Brisco, a veteran of the sport. And I'm excited to see you, man.
It's going to be awesome, man. Can't wait.
Awesome, Matt.
This is The Roman Show.